Is it even working? Okay, so Kurt's movie log, tape 1, date May 9th, 1980. Friday the 13th review. Quick fact, today is May 9th, which is Friday, and Tuesday is gonna be 13th, but the next month of June has the actual Friday the 13th. Now talk about wasted opportunities there. But before we go there, let's clarify how we got here. So here's what happened. I got back from a theater earlier today and that place was packed. That place was so packed. That place was jar of pickles packed. I wouldn't be surprised if we'll make a sequel or two. I wouldn't be surprised at all. Anyway, it feels so good to see so many people in a horror movie. When I came home, I thought to myself, wow, I never want to forget how I felt about this film, so I decided to start a movie journal. Now I know, it's silly to record yourself speaking about a film, but I don't care. Okay, so let's get back to the review. Now, Friday the 13th is a slasher movie. If you don't know what a slasher is, if it's like a thriller and horror had a baby, and you know how sometimes a child looks exactly like one of their parents? Well, to me, slasher looks more like a thriller than a horror. Now, I'll never argue that slasher is a subgenre of horror, but to me, horror is something terrifying, something supernatural, something out of this world. When I read a film, there's a lot of math involved. It's not just how I feel about it. There are 5 criterions, 2 points each, 10 points in total. Now, I'll try to be as chronological as possible. Number 1 is the idea. This is basically how you pitch a movie to the producers. Number 2 is the plot. It involves the writing, the directing. Was the movie interesting? Was the movie boring? Does it meet the requirements of a genre? Number 3 is the acting. Number 4 is the visuals. It's the camera work, it's the special effects, it's the editing, it's the color correction, it's the visual effects if needed. And finally, number 5 is the X Factor. Now this could mean multiple things. It could be the soundtrack, it could be the special meaning that this film has for you personally. This could be something undescribable, like you don't really know why the hell you like this film. Everyone else craps on this movie from my rooftop, but you like it! Now, let's get back to the review, shall we? And we should start with the idea. Now, slasher is kinda new. It's not as old as sci-fi or comedy. We already have such films as John Carpenter's Halloween from 1978, Wes Craven's The Hills Have Eyes from 1977, Tobe Hooper's Texas Chainsaw Massacre from 1974, and we have Black Christmas from the same year. And if not slashers, we also have similar violent films. I'm talking about Day of the Woman from 1978, Last House on the Left from 1972, which also was directed by Wes Craven, and of course the last year's Cannibal Holocaust from 1979. So Friday the 13th loses first point because it's a slasher. This is my least favorite subgenre of horror. Sorry, not sorry. And it loses the second point because it's a completely unoriginal film. The killer is a letdown, you don't have a cool mask, you don't have a signature weapon. Like, what's left for me to like there? And we should move to my next criterion, which is the plot. Now from here on, it's gonna be a spoiler zone. First 5 minutes of the film is the Halloween all over again. It begins 22 years before the actual events, just like Halloween. You see the murder in POV, just like Halloween. Then you jump a whole bunch of years forward, just like Halloween. And you know, the time jump to me is completely unnecessary and pointless. Then we find out that the boy has drowned in 1957. I don't remember, his name is like Jacob or Justin. Then of course everyone is being killed one by one in the most boring manner. And between the kills, there's nothing worth talking about. And slowly but surely we go to the last 20 minutes of the film. This is where we learn that Jeremy's mom is the killer. And to that point, the only survivors are Mrs. Voorhees and the final girl. So then the final girl grabs a poker, hits Mrs. Voorhees, she's playing dead. Then the final girl grabs a rifle, hits Mrs. Voorhees over the head, she pretends dead. Then the final girl grabs a frying pan, hits Mrs. Voorhees over the head, she's playing dead. You see the pattern here? So probably my favorite part of the film is when Jean-Claude pops out of the water, grabs the final girl, pulls her down to the bottom of the lake, and even that scene was ruined by being a dream. and all that would be pretty much forgivable if not so boring. Moving on to my next criterion, which is the acting. The acting in this film is probably one of the strongest parts, but not everyone in the cast doing the job right. We have two people to blame for this. The first one is being a local crazy, and the second one is Mrs. Voorhees. Well, I'm Mrs. Voorhees, an old friend of the Christies. When Mrs. Voorhees finally gets decapitated, which I'm glad, you can almost see the rest of her body screaming, "What have you done to my head?" And the next criterion is the visuals. Now, when I watch a slasher film, I expect a nice amount of gore, I expect inventive kills, I expect cool masks, I expect signature weapon. And what do I have here? 6 out of 10 kills are off-screen. Good job! Although I gotta say, the consequences of one off-screen kill are great. I'm talking about a guy who was pinned to the door by arrows. Although I gotta say more, to be killed like this, I think the guy has to jump and be pinned by 4 arrows at the same time. What? 2 of 4 kills you're lucky enough to see better be off-screen as well. And both of them has the same problem. Creators struggle to find the matching color to the actor's skin. Wrong neck color. Now the next thing I wanted to talk about is the killing of the real snake. Now I'm not a big fan of snakes, but they are still living creatures, right? Killing them on screen seems like a really bad taste to me. I mean, I don't feel really comfortable when he grabs the snake and starts chopping it like a f***ing sausage, especially when it has no purpose for the plot. Which leads us to the last 2 kills in this film, and a scene where a girl gets an axe through her face shines. The demise of Mrs. Voorhees would shine too, if not for the screaming part. And if you look closely in that scene, you would see a really hairy man hands. And we're finally here at my last criterion, which is the X factor, where this movie could earn some extra points. Instead, it loses even more. I'm talking about a soundtrack, which is a complete Psycho ripoff. If you want to check it yourself, just compare the scene where the camp cook runs away through the woods from the killer to the Psycho opening credits. And now it's time to do the math. It gets 0 out of 2 for idea, which is impressively unimpressive. It gets 0 out of 2 for plot, which is lazy and boring. It gets 1 out of 2 for acting, which is decent enough for that kind of movie. It gets 1 out of 2 for visuals, has some hits, has some misses. And it gets 1 final 0 for X factor, because there is none. Overall, there's only 2 points out of 10, which is crap. So that's it. In the end, I just want to say that to me, this film seems like a shameless cash grab that tries to capitalize on the success of Halloween. Completely falls apart and feels really campy, pun intended, or should I say pun Nintendo. I just can't recommend this to casual moviegoers, I can't recommend it to horror fans, none of you will be satisfied. I can just go ahead and recommend to see Halloween again or revisit Psycho. In a couple of years it will be forgotten anyway. So yeah, here's my review. Take care now, bye bye then.